You're listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for spending some time with us today. I hope you will be glad you're happy you're spending some time with us today, too. So we are here. Myra's back.
Hi, everyone.
Being supervised, closely monitored, and all those good things. Oh, man. It's always fun. But life's too short to be miserable all the time. Life's too short to be miserable anytime. Just enjoy it. If you haven't been to GiveGod90.com lately, check that out. If you're new here, we thank you. And we really appreciate everybody that joins us every time we do this.
Yes, we do.
What was the old saying? If you're not careful, you might learn something. So, the other day I started something, and I told y'all, and I meant it, you might think I'm absolutely lost my mind. And something we discovered, I guess we could say, is that in Psalm 2, David reveals there is one head of evil, and it will use whatever means that it can to destroy mankind. It's that simple. It kind of sounds depressing, doesn't it?
Yes.
But that's okay. It's okay. Because it may sound depressing, and it will be destructive at times. It's just something we have to deal with, because Eve and her newfound confusion chose to eat the fruit and handed it to Adam and said, yeah, this is good. And Adam could have said no, but he didn't. So we're stuck with what we have. In the attempt to destroy mankind, it will use confusion, it will use manipulation, but we have a choice. Eve had a choice. Adam had a choice. We have a choice. We're still given the choice. And we'll see in a couple minutes that it is very, very few people who make wise choices. I'm going to start, and this is going to be a little weird too, but it's okay. Something that some of us may have realized without understanding that we realized it. It is almost impossible to follow one item when you put it in a blender and mix it up, right? If you try to take that one piece of fruit, that one vegetable, the one whatever, and you try to see where it's going, it looks very chaotic. When you're preparing a meal or you're preparing something to eat, you put it in there, it just kind of spins around in circles, does all kinds of strange things. And it's supposed to be chaotic in that particular place. Even if we just kind of stir the ingredients together when we're making something, one small piece of something in a pot, it doesn't really seem to make that much difference. You know, what you want to be able to look at is the meal as a whole. You're not interested in that one little piece of potato. Oh, that's my favorite piece of potato. I'm going to keep my eye on that one. Now, I know some cooks have their little pieces of test steak they have on the side of the grill or something. And, you know, that's what they kind of cut off and see the doneness or how well done the steak is. And they get to eat part of it at the time. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you put things together. It's not always wise to watch just one little piece. I'm getting some weird looks. She's wondering where I'm going with this. If we try to concentrate on just one piece doing one thing, it doesn't look organized at all, does it? If you've ever had the opportunity to be at an airport, you watch people, you can tell the people who know where they're going, they've been there before, and you can tell the people this is their first time at this particular airport. Some of them might look at the boards to see where their flight's going or what's coming in. Some of them, you know, might ask somebody where something is. But as they're kind of wandering around in the confusion, if you just look at where they are on the floor, it doesn't look like they have a destination because they just kind of meander and wander and go all over the place until they figure out where they're going. Something I was never drawn to is dancers on a stage. If you watch one particular dancer, it doesn't matter how rhythmic or methodical their moves are, but if you just watch where they are on the floor, it doesn't look like they know where they're going, even though the whole thing's choreographed. They know exactly where they're going. They know where they're supposed to be. But if you just watch one particular dancer out of a group, they often look like they're about to bounce into somebody else or they're not where they're supposed to be. You see, you have to step back and look at the entire group, the entire scenery, just like you have to look at the entire meal to understand what's going on. You have to put everything together. You have to be able to step back and get the big picture to understand this. It's starting to turn colder in the northern hemisphere. And there's going to be some mornings very shortly, probably this week, where if you step outside and you breathe, and hopefully you do, you're going to be able to see your breath. And when your warm breath leaves your body and it condensates in the cold air, it often reveals a formless cloud, and then it just kind of dissipates. And it seems very chaotic and without purpose until you understand the complete purpose of everything that's happening. So with that in mind, we're going to go back to Genesis for just a moment here. You want to read those couple verses?
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and void, and the darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 and 2.
I said we were going back to Genesis. Moses describes the beginning of the universe we live in as formless and empty, kind of like that breath you exhale on a cold morning. You can kind of see it, you can see through it, there's nothing to it. It's just formless and void. But unlike the breath that we exhale, that just kind of dissipates into nothing, our Creator's Spirit, His breath, has the ability to create anything He desires. If He says, I want a planet over there, He speaks it, and it happens. Wouldn't that be nice? I'm not going there. Some of us might know how to form our mouth, and when you exhale, it creates a ring if you do it properly. But even that, when we do it, it just sort of goes away. If the Creator speaks, that ring would stay until he tells it to leave. And you're probably giving me the same look that Myra is, like, what does all this have to do with understanding the world we live in today? Well, all of these examples, we need to be able to step back and see the complete picture. The whole thing, not just that little piece that you want to concentrate on. You've got to be able to step back and see the big picture. Because if you don't, it's like watching one little piece of something in a blender, one little piece of something as you stir the pot. It looks very chaotic. It looks very unorganized. What we see often when we get tunnel vision appears to be chaos. Think about young people in the world today. They seem very confused about who they are, and mostly it's because they've been trained by our worldly society to concentrate only on themselves, the small picture. They're not taught, they're not trained how to understand that they need to fit into the societies of the world, the cultures of the world as a whole. They haven't figured out that if, and we used to say this all the time, the world doesn't revolve around you, right? But they think it does. They think it does. And because they're looking at this very small picture, they see the world as very chaotic, and they don't know what to do. They're not taught how to fit into it as a whole. Most of them don't even know how to fit into their own family circle, right? They don't quite know how to fit into their circle of friends. They don't understand how to be part of a larger society, a larger culture, because they concentrate only on themselves. And let's be honest, we have ourselves to blame for that, right? Because when they're young, oh, it's all about you. It's all about you. Here's your birthday. Here's your Christmas. Here's your this. Here's your that. Isn't that something? You see, my generation has been trained to divide itself. We separate things. And we like to separate things. Everything belongs in its own little organized compartment, right? This goes in this box, that goes in that box. This person, we stereotype into this or into that. We have been trained to divide people based on color, religion, ethnicity, language, nationality, and really countless other ways. There's lessons in the Bible about division, especially division of people. And one stands out to me when I think about people being divided. It talks about Jacob in the land of where his fathers resided, in the land of Canaan. If you want to continue with that.
This is the account of Jacob. When Joseph was 17 years old, he was tending the flock with his brothers, the sons of his father's wife, Bilhah and Zilpah, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than his other sons, because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So he made him a robe of many colors. Then Joseph's brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them. They hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Genesis 37, verses 1 through 4.
So, jealousy helps divide the brothers here. And that's a lot of times what divides people today. even believers, right? Division is apparently not a good thing. Look at what Bible says about unity.
Psalms 133, verse 1. A song of degrees of David. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for the brethren to dwell together in unity. So Jesus called them together and began to speak to them in parables. How can Satan drive out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, it cannot stand. If a house is divided against itself, it cannot stand. And if Satan is divided and rises against himself, he cannot stand. His end has come. Indeed, no one can enter a strong man's house to steal his possessions unless he first ties up the strong man. Then he can plunder his house. Mark 3, verses 23 through 27.
So David in Psalm 133 says, behold, hey, look, it's good, it's pleasant, it's pleasing when people get together in unity. Now, here's a little side note. In Hebrew, the word one is echad. The word unity adds one letter, one Hebrew letter to that word. It becomes yachad. And it's the same Hebrew letter that begins the Creator's name. So when I was sitting at a table with some rabbis years ago, I said, so what you're saying is you can't have unity without God's name. And one of them had apparently never thought of it like that before, and he looked at me and said, that's very good. And I knew that was the first time he'd thought about that like that. You could see it in his face. When Jesus is talking about the same thing, they were talking about he must come from Satan because he's driving out evil spirits. And he says, wait a second, how can evil drive out evil? If you're divided, you cannot hold together. You can't stand together. But then he goes on and he says, you can't enter a strong man's house to steal his possessions until you tie up the strong man. Think about the world we live in today. Satan wants to destroy mankind. But up until recent times, there has been a great number of believers who would stop that. Now we're so divided, they can't stand. Division will cause us to fail. And it's exactly what we're seeing in the world today because believers have become divided. Instead of stepping back and being able to see the big picture, which is, those who are with the Creator and those who are against the Creator. That's the big picture we need to be looking at. But most of us, what do we see? What do we see? We get caught up with black versus white, homosexual versus straight, nation versus nation, denomination versus denomination, pastor versus rabbi. So on and so on and so on it goes. Believers are supposed to be of one mind, in one accord. But we've become so divided, we fail. We've been manipulated to believe that we are each other's enemy. The Baptists and the Methodists, they've got to fight. They're challenging each other to see who can draw the most members into their churches by offering worldly things. Who's got the best band this week? Who plays the best praise songs this week? And it's not who's delivering the best message, who's delivering the message we need to hear. It's, well, the church on the corner over there, they have better coffee than the church on the corner over there. But the church on the corner over there has better donuts. So which one are we going to today? That's what you have created, Christians. Sorry. No, I'm not. I meant that. Because it's what you've created. We've been manipulated. But when we step back, when we get to see the whole picture, what do we see? We don't see an individual or a nation or a group. But what we actually do see are the people who choose to be obedient to the Creator and the people who choose to be disobedient. And today, they're not even hiding who they are. Excuse me. Today, they have websites that brag and display who they are, what their plan of destruction is. They boast about infiltrating world governments, world banks, universities, agencies within governments, and it's all to promote their agenda of destruction. I wasn't sure if I was going to name this group, but I'm going to name this group. There is one group in particular called the Forum of Young World Leaders, and it's under the direction of Charles Schwab, by the way. They openly brag about how they actively recruit about 150 young people every year for membership. Now, out of those 150, it is a very, very small percentage that turns them down. There's a very, very small percentage that understand what these folks are doing, and they don't want to have any part of it. Because believers have become so divided from themselves in the world today, we no longer have the ability to be united. And because of that, it does seem to have turned the world into some type of unorganized chaos. Let's step back and look at a bigger picture. For decades, people have blamed groups such as the Bilderbergs, right? It's probably a name most of you are familiar with. And while they basically admit now they do have a part, or they do play a part in world governments, they like to, people like to think they're running the overall evil in the world, and really there's just a small part of it. You have all these little subgroups. Remember Psalm 2, the king oversees the rulers. Look at the people who are involved in the governments of the world. And I'm not talking about the political figureheads. I'm not talking about people like presidents and prime ministers and dictators. I'm talking about other folks. These folks show up and they make the speeches that are written for them. Who writes their speeches? Who are their advisors? Who is it that is behind the scenes whispering in their ear, this is the direction we need to go? If you want to please your constituents, if you want to make your country wealthy, if you want to, don't you want to be famous? Don't you want to be rich? Don't you want to be? The people who are in behind the scenes, many of them are brought up in groups such as the Forum of Young World Leaders. Many of these people go to work in, well, I should say it this way. They go to work for certain corporations, but they position themselves in political circles where they can influence things. In the United States, they're called lobbyists. They lobby for certain things from political people. I said the other day that our economic climate in the world, because of our economic climate in the world, most world leaders don't want conflict. It's very detrimental to most economies. They want their nations to be successful. They want their people to be successful, and they want them to be happy. They want them to have the things they want. And you can't always trade with somebody you're at war with, right? I mean, that's kind of hard to do. And specifically today, looking at Gaza, the people who live there, they were receiving water and electric from Israel, but something happened. Did you realize that members of Hamas were actually digging up water pipes, turning water off to people in Gaza, and they were using these pipes as weapons, part of their rocketry, part of their shrapnel in their rockets? How much do you have to hate to deprive your own people of water so that you can use the free water that we're receiving, not the water, but the mechanical devices that you were receiving this free water from, and you're going to shoot it at the people who were supplying you water? Does that make any sense at all? That's kind of like, you're going to hand me $100 bill, and I'm going to tear it up and slap you back with it. That's basically what they're doing. What cause does the death of innocent people promote? Well, it promotes division. It promotes division. Around the world, look at how many people are protesting, pro and con Hamas, pro and con Israel. And these folks don't even have a clue what's going on. What purpose could division really achieve? What's the larger objective of evil? The destruction of mankind. And that's another reason I say we also need to be very, very careful how we try to plug Bible prophecy into the current conflict. Until the event is concluded, we can't look back at prophecy and see what fits and what doesn't. We get so caught up in Israel versus Hamas, U.S. versus Iran, or any of those short-sighted conflicts, we lose sight of the big picture. And the big picture really, really is good versus evil. More specifically, those who stand with the Creator and those who stand against Him. And believers today, now more than ever, need to be more obedient to the Bible than they ever thought about being to their denominations. They need to be more obedient to what's in the Bible than their traditions. You cannot have unity and be of one accord, as it says in the King James, if you are practicing traditions that conflict with the sacred word of our Creator. Division will cause failure. It's that simple. Especially when you're dividing yourself from the one who designed us. So call me a conspiracy theorist. Maybe I am. But there's one thing I know for certain. Unless believers choose wisely, choose to live the way our Creator designed us to live, they will be separated. They will be divided from each other and from the Creator. If you want to be able to understand the chaos you see in the world today, have unity with the Creator. Don't be separated from Him. Because when you're separated, you can be manipulated. You can be confused. Something we said during COVID is when we realized what it was, we're being played. And we were. They figured out confusion and manipulation can make people do all kinds of things. Fear makes people do all kinds of things. How many times? 365 times in the Bible it says, don't be afraid. Fear not. The Almighty will keep His promise. That's a guarantee. The question is whether you're going to stand with Him or whether you're going to stand against Him, because there's no middle ground. That is one thing He made sure of. And to quote somebody who once said, it will be God's way or it will be God's way. Either way, He will have His way. So don't be confused. Don't allow yourselves to continually be manipulated. Step back, see the big picture. And when you do that, the chaos will seem to disappear, and you'll be able to see clearly what's happening. So until Thursday, we wish you many, many blessings, everyone.
Yes, everyone be blessed.